Hello there, it's Miriam here, and in this video, I'm going to be going through my personal recovery story from chronic pain. So my issue started with shoulder pain following a climbing session, which was quite intense. I do remember feeling a strong pull and pain on my shoulder as I was climbing, but it wasn't too bad the next day, but it kind of stuck into my mind. So basically, I started to get pains on and off, and I just felt that something wasn't right in my shoulder. So I started physical therapy. And at first, I was very excited even about the physical therapy. I liked the therapist, I liked the interaction I had with him. I felt empowered because I could do the different exercises that were going to heal my shoulder. But unfortunately, 1 or 2 months passed and I was still having the same kind of pain. And not only that, it seemed to be getting worse. I would sometimes feel worse after I did the exercises. And I would sometimes wake up at night with intense pain. The pain would kind of spread and act in a really weird way. So I started having other kind of symptoms in the shoulder area. And when I did tell my physical therapist, I could see this disappointed look on his face at one point. And he told me, like, oh, maybe you have a tear. And if you do have a tear, then you should no longer do any rock climbing anymore. And that sounded quite gloom to me. And it was so unlike the way he used to approach my other sessions. He used to have this confidence before, okay, that I was going to be okay. But suddenly on that day, I just realized I could see his disappointment and his frustration. And, and that reflected back at me. So that's when the worry and the anxiety really, really kicked off. When I couldn't resolve the shoulder pain and I started having other tests until I actually had an MRI that showed what we call a Hagel lesion, which is basically a ligament that's torn off the humerus. I was told that it could only be fixed through surgery. And yes, eventually, right away, I booked the surgery because I couldn't handle this anymore. I couldn't take living in pain. By this time, some months had passed, about like 6 months. And I was going to pay for the surgery myself. I was really, really scared, but I felt that I had to go through with it. The only issue was that when I went to see my surgeon and when I went for a visit and he examined me, I also got this puzzled look from him. He was like, yeah, I can actually fix that thing that's not right in your shoulder, but I don't guarantee that you'll be rid of pain. And that really, really confused me because I thought, like, well, if the pain is coming from that damage, then why wouldn't I be healed from the pain after the surgery? But I think the surgeon obviously knew something that I didn't. He knew that the pain doesn't necessarily correlate to any damage or structural imbalance that we might have in our body, right? So he was wise enough to know that, maybe not wise enough to explain it to me. Because it actually made me even more scared and even more helpless. Because if the surgery wasn't, guaranteed to heal me, then I couldn't really look forward to anything, right? So that actually, in that time, as I was waiting for the surgery, I started to have other pains in my legs that really, really intensified one day. So one day I woke up, I could barely walk. My left leg was hurting intensely. A couple of days later, the right leg started to hurt in the same way. Okay, my piriformis started to hurt. I was diagnosed with piriformis syndrome as well as with sciatica pain, but I also had pain at the top of my thighs and in my calves. So it was pretty bad, like leg pain all over, and I could also see visible spasm in the legs, visible spasms. So it was something definitely physical, right? And to cut a long story short, I also developed symptoms in my hands and arms, neuropathic pain in both hands and arms. It actually hurt also to type and do the work that I did then on the computer. So I was a real mess and I had no idea what was happening. I just thought that my body was breaking down. Now, not only couldn't I climb, but I couldn't even go for a walk and enjoy it. Like, it was excruciating to walk even for just a minute, right? So, this was a time when I had been depressed for a while, okay, because of my shoulder, where I had been feeling powerless. This was also a time when I had been feeling frustrated and angry at certain things that had happened in the year and a half or two before, um, which I didn't realize were affecting me. And I was extremely lucky to have actually canceled the surgery because I thought that I needed to focus on my legs first because they hurt so much more than the shoulders. And I obviously restarted physical therapy now also for the legs and arms. Again, I didn't see much improvement. I went in to take a steroid injection in my piriformis. And again, it calmed down a little bit, but I didn't see much improvement. I felt like a cripple, like someone who was like severely sick, and I had no idea why I wasn't improving. The physical therapist hinted at the fact that there was some kind of imbalance. I had a flat foot, and maybe that predisposed me to pain. But when I asked him whether I had probably had the flat foot for, way before I had the pain, he said yes. And he said, like, I can't explain that. To me, it just didn't make sense, right? So it didn't make sense why I was in so much pain when I was trying to take care of my body. I was doing some basic physical exercises. I mean, when I knew that there were so many people who were just like couch potatoes out there doing nothing and maybe who were overweight but not in pain, right? So I couldn't understand, and I was only 28 years old, right? So I was extremely lucky when I was at the depths of depression, to actually have stumbled upon a concept that I decided to look into. And that concept is called TMS, tension myoneural syndrome. And it was coined by Dr. John Sarno, a doctor who, through his books, had actually healed so many people because he was the doctor to have discovered what was going on behind a lot of chronic unexplained symptoms, a lot of intense symptoms. So that's when I learned about the mind body connection. And I started to seriously think about how it might apply to me. I admit that in the beginning, I was very skeptical that all my symptoms could be just mind body related because my symptoms were so physical, so intense, and so real, right? But to be honest, I was left with nothing else that I could do. There was nothing else I could try. I mean, even massages were having very temporary effects, and I had tried every physical measure, and it wasn't working. The needle wasn't moving, and I knew that I had to do something different. So I just decided to give this TMS thing my all, my everything. I learned as much as I could. I followed some tasks which I found online, some journaling tasks, some other self-reflection tasks, and I started to trust the process, to trust that maybe there was something in this. Maybe my body wasn't as broken as I thought, right? Maybe my thoughts were creating all of this, my beliefs, okay? And I just started to make sense of things, and gradually my pain actually started to calm down. And at first, I was hesitant about disclosing it or about like celebrating it. But something in me just told me to stick to it, continue believing, continue doing this, continue following what I was following, right? And at the same time, I had also started some mindfulness meditation with my therapist. And that really got me into looking at my body objectively and at not actually getting too consumed by my thoughts and my emotions, but simply noticing them. So I gained this body awareness through mindfulness meditation, this awareness of, yeah, it's not just fear and me, we're not just coupled together, but I could actually uncouple myself a little bit from the fear and also observe it a little bit. So that also helped me a bit. And I started to do gradual resumption of my activities, even though I was still in pain. But I started to decide to walk every day, to take out the trash every day, to clean up after my dog every day. Okay, when before my mom was helping me with all these tasks, I decided to do simple tasks every day anyway. Okay, because it was what was recommended to me. So eventually, my brain got used to doing this stuff again. My body got used to the fact that we're going to do it anyway. So it didn't keep reacting in the same way. It didn't keep responding to every activity I was doing as if it was the most dangerous and scary thing ever. I just got used to it again, right? So there was a lot of brain retraining involved, a lot of gradual exposure until I could go all out, until I actually resumed rock climbing, which was the last thing I resumed because I had thought that my shoulder pain was real, that I had thought that I still needed the surgery. But one day I just woke up and thought like, well, what if my shoulder pain is also a mind body condition? Can I allow that possibility in? And I allowed it in, and I started to move my shoulder a bit more naturally to gradually ease into other activities. And indeed, it did improve as well, right? So personally, I've been inspired to create this program because I realized all of the things that I did to get better. And I realized how each thing, how each task was important. So not only did I do certain emotional work, okay, not only did I reduce stress in my life and tackle all those emotional factors, but I worked a lot with my thoughts. I worked a lot with changing my reactions to the symptoms. And I think this is something that a lot of people overlook, right? Or as they are not even aware of the kind of beliefs that they're carrying around with them on a day-to-day basis when it comes to their body, okay? So I realized how effective certain things were, some of which I just stumbled across, some of the things that I just actually found out for myself that worked. And of course, I wanted to share this with the world because even though my physical therapist back then had told me to be careful of my return to climbing, had told me to only do easy routes, I decided to go all in and actually, try everything anyway, do everything anyway, because I didn't want to operate out of fear anymore. Because if my body was not injured anymore, then there was no reason why I couldn't do these activities without pain. So it was a total mindset shift in my case. Of course, there are many things that I did to get better, but all of them were actually pretty simple things as well, which is why I'm so excited to share them with you in this program together with Alec. And to cut a long story short, I've been pain free of these symptoms for 8 years now. I have had a few setbacks with new symptoms now and then, but I've always been able to link them to what was happening to me emotionally. I've always been able to work with my reactions in order to not allow these symptoms to persist. And in fact, nowadays, maybe if I have a symptom, I just realize what it is and it goes away in the same day sometimes or in a couple of days. So I got so much empowerment out of this, knowing that my body can be okay, my body can recover, and that most chronic symptoms are actually there just because of a chronically negative pattern that we've adopted, that we can always undo this pattern. So I'm eager to share more in the rest of the program. That's my story in a nutshell, and I'll see you again in the first lesson.